Good morning. Craig Howard here. Happy to be with you again this morning. I was reading an article this morning, and I may have shared some of this with you another time. I don't know. I've shared so many articles, but I was reading this article. I know I had read this before, so I may have shared some of this with you before. But it was the story of Michelangelo, and Michelangelo was a great painter. I've seen his work on a trip that Aaron and I took over to Europe when we visited the Vatican and saw the Sistine Chapel and saw some of his statues. And he really was a genius when it came to art. But on this particular day, in this particular article, it talked about how Michelangelo was living during the time of the Renaissance. And this was a time, not the Renaissance, the Reformation. And this was a time when the whole concept or the realization was coming to people that we are saved by grace through faith. And what that means, the whole really embracing the idea of grace. The church had become very legalistic and very stodgy, and so this was about embracing God's grace, and that's really what drove the whole Reformation. But it was during this time that Michelangelo had sort of an awakening of his own, and uh, he came to understand what grace was, and he came to understand how precious that was, and he realized that during this time, um, Chi Chi is determined to she's determined to knock the legs out from under my tripod that's holding my camera. Anyhow, he determined that he wanted to um, embrace the grace of God. And one of the last works that he did was a sculpture of, it was intended to be his grave marker. It was a sculpture of him as Nicodemus holding the body of Christ. And you can, if you ever get a chance to travel to Florence, Italy, you can find this statue. It never made it to his grave marker. You can find this statue in a museum in Florence, Italy, and the statue is on one side, and on the other side is a poem, and the poem is called The Deposition. You can Google that. But in it, he comes to realize that his he had made his art his god. His art had actually come to the place where it was wounding his soul because his art had become his king, and it had become his god, and trying to live up to the expectations that everybody had of him, and what that meant, and how difficult that was. It was just kind of overwhelming to him, and so he was instead trying to release himself from that and embrace the open arms of God that he saw on the cross and the divine love that was God's, and wanted that to be from that point on in his life, wanted that to be his God, even though he came to that realization very late in his life. But it made me think about the idea of how we ourselves often put other things in our life before God, and they, in fact, unbeknownst to us, not even realizing it sometimes, those things in fact become our God. They become the thing that we serve, that we give our life to, that we give our energy to, and they in fact become our God. And so, my challenge to you this morning, the Bible makes it very clear. God said, "You shall have no other gods before me." And we all say, "Well, I don't worship any other gods. I don't worship any idols. I don't. Well, really take stock of that, because Michelangelo came to realize that his work had become his god, the thing that he idolized. And I wonder how many people have idols in their life. I mean, how long would that truth have existed before Michelangelo came to understand that? How long did he live that lie in his life before he really came to understand that he had allowed his work to become his idol? And what is it in your life that maybe has become your idol? There goes the phone. that shouldn't. Something to think about. I'm going to have to go answer the phone. You have a good day. God bless.